Hey everybody, it's Brian Burns and welcome to this episode of Sales Questions. Here's the one we got this week. I guess it's prompted by there's a new book out about objections and I'm like, really, do we need another book about objections? Objections are first, mostly preventable. An objection is typically a symptom that you're moving too fast, faster than the other person wants. And why? Because they're talking about or pushing back. What you want them to do is talking about them, what they care about, what they're interested in, and why you guys should work together. That is what a great salesperson does. A bad salesperson talks at people, asks for time, asks for things instead of earning them, instead of being a natural thing. Now, this is going to vary based on the complexity of the sale. And I focus on the complex sale. I don't focus on the door-to-door, over the phone, single call sale, which is very different. And in that case, go buy as many books as you want, because that's kind of a dead market or a really brutal market. That's why I encourage you so hard to get into the B2B sales. You make 2 or 3 times as much. The quality of life is 10 times better, and there's a future there. And if I can help you with that, I've got the sales development rep course that takes you from a barista to sales rep in probably 3 months. That's probably a reasonable amount of time to learn it and adapt to it. But anyways, 3 ways to handle any objection. We'll get them eventually at some level of concern. And the first step is align with them, agree with them. And you don't have to say, you're right, it's too expensive. You're right, I'm a waste of time. You're right, you're too busy. What you say is, time's precious, and I wouldn't waste a second of it, and then move on. It's too expensive. Money's tight. We have a limited number of dollars to spend, and we need to focus on what really matters. Number 2 is to start working on the logic of it. You can phrase it based off of what other people do. And why number 1 is agree is because nobody agrees. We try and handle objections instead of align with them and understand we skipped something. They're objecting because we didn't prevent the objection. How do you prevent an objection? You bring it up before they ask for it. And in my system is I talk about the natural progression that people make in a decision. And what everyone in sales today does is try to either do all that in an email, a voicemail, a phone call, a face-to-face call all at once. And that has to work in the simple sale. When you're going door to door, you can't go visit them once a week to sell them Girl Scout cookies. You get that one chance, and you either sell them a Girl Scout cookie or you don't. And you don't go back every day. Well, you can go back every day, but the police will be called. And when the person's on the lot to buy a car, they're there to buy a car, or they're a tire kicker. There's really, no other reason. People in the mall, different. They might be just killing time. But if they're in your grasp, they're in your circle of trust, and even then, you don't ask, how can I help you, or can I help you today? Why? Because everyone does it, and it probably worked 50 years ago, and that's why people did it. And I did retail. I did retail in high school. I sold shoes, and I got the commission bug. We were on commission, and I came up with a system, and what I would do is just smile at people, talk about the weather, break the ice with them. So number 1 is first align with them. Use verbal judo, meaning like fighting them will only make the objection solidify that they're right. Aligning with them aligns you with them, that you're both on the same side. Say, you're right. Just say, you're right. People love to hear that. People love to hear that they're right. And then you can move on to the logic. And obviously we hear that a lot. And what typically happens is that people go through an evaluation phase and they compare it against doing nothing, which is, seems safe today. Okay, so you're aligning with them and then you're taking them through a journey. Number 3 is to work on the outcome that they're looking for. Now, we're all safe, right? But how does it make sense to put off an operation? Because, every day is precious and it's not going to get better. Is this going to heal itself? And especially if you're in the ROI space, meaning you have a good return on investment. So you have to be able to balance the emotion with the logic. So number 1, align with them. Number 2, start to use the logic of other customers to apply to them. So especially when you name them, either a big company that they know about or somebody in their space. Somebody in their space, especially a competitor, really gets their attention. That's what we heard from them. And they took long. They did. And they regretted it. Or they moved too fast for us. They wanted to just get going. You guys are more conservative. And all of a sudden, when they correct you and you say, well, when you say conservative, what do you mean? Well, you want to take time. I heard that. And then all of a sudden, they want to move fast because people are very concerned about their competition, very concerned about their career. And when we're selling anything, we're really talking about change and the loss of time and money, our 2 most precious things, time and money. So what you have to do is get them to the logical point, number 2, of that not doing this is going to cost you more than doing this. Now that, you can use the operation example where, I had this thing, my knee needed this or my back needed that or my head needed something else. And I was scared and I wanted to take my time. But at the end of the day, it had to be done. And the sooner you do it, sometimes it's the best. So you apply the logic. And then number 3 is get to the outcome that they want. Because what you'll find in the complex sale is if you do things right, you don't get objections. I honestly didn't really get them, and I'm not making that up. But certainly I did at the beginning. You get the objection about time, but then you're moving too fast. You're asking for something before you earned it. You asking for something before you explained what it was. And I guess I do get it now when people misperceive it. Like if I'm talking to a CMO, they immediately say, I'm not sponsoring your podcast. And I'd be like, well, good. I didn't ask and I don't want. And all of a sudden they're like, well, why not? And I go, well, obviously you don't get it. And there's too many people who do. And love to have you on the show. But let me ask you a question. When you say sponsor a podcast, what does that mean to you? Well, we tried this at this company and that company and some other company and it didn't work. And when you say didn't work, what does that mean to you? Did it not justify the cost? How did you do it? And then all of a sudden, there's typically a preconceived understanding of what it means versus what it really is. And I go, and I always align with it. I go, that's why I don't do it that way. That's why you don't hear ads on my podcast. I talk about only products I care about, only products I use, only products I love. And I explain to you how I use them to make more money. If you choose to look at them, that's up to you. And the worst thing is you can go to their website because they all produce fantastic content that will help you learn to sell better. And that I turn into an audio format to help you sell more. So all of a sudden, you get the conversation going. So first, if you can't prevent it, this is how you handle it. 1, align with them. Don't fight them. Don't talk about how they're wrong. Don't talk about what they didn't see. Align with them. Just say, yep, I hear that all the time. Yep, totally get it. But help me understand that. When you or just use, I'm confused as number two. And then all of a sudden they have to kind of justify their objection. So you can either use logic or a question like, hey, I'm confused. Can you help me understand that a little bit better? And they'll probably say, what do you mean? Well, when you say we're too busy compared to improving this, or too busy that you just aren't interested, all of a sudden you get at their logic, pull apart their thinking, and I'm just trying to understand. You never want to get into that not fighting, because nobody thinks it's fighting. It's like I get haters all the time on LinkedIn, and I just ask, why hate? And they go, what? I'm not hating. Well, you just, said my video was stupid or doesn't apply. And he goes, well, it doesn't apply to me. And I go, well, what made you think I made it for you? And, well, that's not hate. I go, well, what is hate then? When you think the whole world is customized to you? And I just make them justify their hate. And they can't. So they just rationalize why my interpretation of hate is too low or too high. And all of a sudden you get them, just putting paragraphs of explaining their position. Now, granted, haters are not customers and are just a waste of time. But I love engaging them because it ramps up my posts on LinkedIn. So the more riled up I get them, the more they respond. And the more they respond, the more their audience gets to see how much of a jerk they are. And as long as you don't divulge yourself as a jerk, you're in good shape. But I digress there. So think of these three steps. 1, align. 2, pull apart their logic. 3, focus on the outcome that they're looking for. Boom. You've got every objection you ever needed. Don't waste your money on books, on objections. They're just trying to take your money and justify their existence. And let's face it, check their background. They never sold. So that's pretty much the sales expert world in general. And that's it for this week. Make sure you're checking out my ebook on b2brevenue.com, where I talk about how companies buy. I did sell for 25 years and kind of rose from a lonely programmer to pre-sales guy to sales guy, and had a ball doing it, made a ton of money, and now I'm trying to help you guys sell. So go check it out. It's all free, b2brevenue.com. Check out the courses while you're there. Some are free. Got one on LinkedIn that's free. Shows you how to get a nice profile up and running in less than 20 minutes, a professional one. I'd say less than half on LinkedIn are at a B level. I show you how to get an A level. Most that I see are B minus, C plus maybe. And it's not your fault. There's a couple of bugs with LinkedIn that people aren't aware of and don't know how to get around. I show you in the course how you do that. And the other one is on nudge.ai. This is how I use AI to do all of my prospecting. And I got to tell you, the next big KPI that I'm working with Nudge on is how do you make the relationship strength between the two companies a leading indicator of whether the deal is going to close or not, whether you can get into the company or not. Why is this critical? Because everyone's counting the emails and the phone calls. And the problem is everyone's emailing and phone calling. And they're saying all the same things. I just downloaded a ebook from one of the leading companies, and it's like they're just rehashing the same thing. It's like your pitch, it doesn't matter how good your pitch is. Unless you hit them at the exact right time or your brand is really well known and they've been thinking about it, your pitch, it's just so old school. You need a good pitch eventually, but you need to understand the stages that people go through in the decision process. Now, you can hijack some of them based off of your brand, if you've got a huge brand behind you, or you have an established relationship with them, or you have some context that they already have that you can talk about. All those things can hijack it, or you can hijack it via how they think, which is the easiest no matter how cold it is. And that's what I teach. It's insanely effective. Start the conversation, get the meeting, the course. I take you through you have access to it for a year. I turn you into a prospecting machine. The machine that I got a 5X this year on my business. So check it out. Start the conversation, get the meeting. If you want to get out of the hell of B2C selling, and the sooner you do it, the better. Become an SDR, sales development rep in the B2B space. I take you through that journey as well. SDR grad school. So it's not a selling course. It's really how do you become an A-level sales development rep really quick. All the shortcuts, all the tricks, all the tools. Now, you can be comfortable sitting there like, okay, I'll be here for a year or two. Maybe they like me, and that might keep your job, but I teach you how to crush it, how to make real money. And if you're not money motivated, what you'll find is that sales doesn't have the right mojo for you because it's a money motivated, money rewarded system and profession. So check all that out. Tell me what you care about. I'm going to love answering sales questions.